worry about this is a stand-up meeting. The idea is no one was more than 15 minutes. Each team member is asked 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? Are there any impediments? This is not a problem-solving time. It's also not a report to the Scrum Master. This is a time where the team gets visibility into what other team members are doing, did do, what the impediments are. Quite frequently, I'll find in Scrum that somebody will go, oh yeah, well, I can't do this. And what happens is someone else in the team will go, oh yeah, well, you can just go over here and this was done yesterday. So it's a exchange of information. And then next to last is the sprint demo. Again, we're working toward working code. So if we're trying to deliver working code, we should be able to demonstrate that code. So the demo is an opportunity to show the deliverables to any interested stakeholders, all stakeholders. And lastly is retrospective. In our organization, the retrospective is kind of like a mini party. The Scrum Master brings in food, and it's a real small thing. It's a little party. Basically, you celebrate, you finish the Scrum. But most importantly, you talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, and what should we do differently next time. One of the important elements of Scrum is the culture of the organization. You've got to have a culture in which you're willing to stand up and say, I messed up. You know, I didn't meet my deadline. I thought I was going to be able to do this in 8 hours, but it took me 3 days. Still not done. But you also want to foster a safe environment where you can admit that. The idea is you want to get better in each sprint at planning, at estimating, and executing. Okay, the artifacts. Product backlog. Again, all requirements are constantly changing. User stories, feature descriptions are categorized or pulled together and are reprioritized by the product owner before each sprint. The sprint backlog is simply the highest priority items for the product backlog, and those are broken down into individual tasks. As you work through the activities in any sprint, one of the most common graphics that Scrum Masters use to both keep track of and also communicate to people outside the team what's going on is the burn down chart. The burn down chart is effectively, it's real simple. Let's say we start with 250 hours. We have a sprint, we say it's going to take us 250 hours to complete that. So we are planning for 250 hours. Then every day, each team member claims their hours and say, here's how much time I spent on each particular task. And then you start basically saying, well, let's assume that after the first day, task number 1001, we planned for 8 hours. And Mary spent 8 hours on that. So we reduced the number of planned hours by 8 hours, and we have a linear, basically we have a line that just says that our planned and our actual work is the same. And whenever these two converge, it means that either there's an impediment that's been encountered, work is being accomplished more slowly than was anticipated, or another way to look at that is the planning was not accurate. In this case, it appears as though for several days there was some impediment, no activity, no progress to be made, and then the impediment was removed or addressed, and now we're starting to make more progress to accomplish more work. There's a lot of different ways to interpret the burn down chart. This is just a very simple implementation. This is actually created from an Excel spreadsheet, so it's not hard to create burn down charts. And then lastly, the working product is the primary sprint deliverable. Okay, so how do we use Scrum? How do we use Agile Scrum environment? 6 easy steps, what I mentioned earlier. Number 1, build your product backlog. Your product owner should know what your customer wants. You have to be able to express that. Number 2, organize a collaborative workspace. So you've got to have an environment where you're able to work and communicate. It doesn't necessarily have to be a war room. The company I work with actually uses the war room concept. We're basically taking over several conference rooms and developers and analysts and QA sitting on the conference table. It's very annoying at first, but as they start being more cohesive team, they actually control the process. Plan the first sprint. If you're doing this the first time, do the best you can, plan it, and then sprint. Go, do it. Work on it for 2 weeks. Do the work. Track your work. Work down charts however you want to. And the most important step, especially when you're starting to use Scrum, is to stop. Stop on time. If you didn't get everything finished, that's okay. Figure out what you didn't get finished. Why did you not get it finished? Because you're planning poor, Are you just trying to figure out how everything works? It doesn't matter. Just address the issues, do it better next time. And then review, reflect, repeat. Review what you did or didn't do. Reflect on why you did or didn't do what you did or didn't do. And then go back. Seems real easy. However, I will say that the right tools can make the process easier. If you're wondering, this is what
Lost your microphone.
Sorry?
Your microphone went off for a second. Came back on.
Oh, that's where Roundtable comes in.
That's what it went off.
That's what he's trying to get you.
Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about Roundtable. I want to be cognizant of the time that we're going to go here. Roundtable TSMS, stands for Total Software Management System, is a team-oriented extension for the open edge development environment. It provides full-blown software configuration management, which versioning is this. Configuration management is this. It's a piece of it. Versioning is a piece of software configuration management, but configuration management is basically focused on identifying a specific configuration and tracking and controlling its migration as it moves through the product lifecycle. Does anybody currently use Roundtable? Ah, that's great. Awesome. Okay. So I won't spend a whole lot of time because it looks like more than half of you guys already use Roundtable. It's also a set of developer productivity tools, and it does play well with Agile. I'll be honest with you. When I first started looking at this concept, I thought, Roundtable seems to have some of the pieces. And I'll bet if I provided enough good product enhancements that maybe version 12 of Roundtable would be Agile ready. I was really surprised in a very positive way to find out that all the building blocks are there. And the changes that I would recommend to make it really Agile, it's already Agile friendly, but they're very, very tiny. I'll talk about this again. So, Roundtable is based on the manufacturing process. And we want to be able to use this manufacturing process to create repeatable processes in software development genre so that we can continuously increase quality and capture what we're doing well so that we can repeat that. And, of course, by increasing quality, we can identify what we don't do well and decrease the activities that do not provide positive ROI. So in Roundtable, we look at it, again, from the factory standpoint. Roundtable allows us to define the process. So once we define the process, we have the flow. We use our workspace design, we use the workspace sources so that we flow the project all the way from source to completion. We get the ability to apply controls, both security controls and just the organizational controls to manage changes all the way through the process. And of course, one of the big reasons a lot of people start looking at Roundtable is for compliance issues. We find that Sarbanes-Oxley is a very large driver in many cases. With Roundtable, this is the slide that we use whenever we're introducing people to Roundtable, that each one of these workstations would represent a particular workspace in the Roundtable environment. You can either start from development, providing everything from scratch, or you can actually have an external workspace, quasi-external, with any partner source code. Say your QAD customer. You can actually bring the QAD source code into the workspace and then funnel that into the development environment, which makes it very, very easy to accept updates from QAD. And Roundtable tells you what you modified, and you just got upgraded from QAD. It says, here are the two versions, what do you want to do? So it makes it easy to identify and hard to stumble over changes. And then finally, you can also include multiple custom development environments. One thing that's not depicted here, though, we just got to point out, in Scrum, all your developers, if you're running multiple sprints, can work in the same development environment, or you can have separate development workspaces and then funnel them together for the final product and choose to do it that way. In Roundtable, we have the ability to do it either way. So remember, we talked earlier that Agile values individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Roundtable supports Agile better than I thought it would, honestly, but it doesn't enforce Agile. It empowers developers to become or to employ Agile. Basically, the features fit very nicely into an Agile method because it gives you primary visibility of the tools to create artifacts. It gives you the ability to see what's going on, how things fit together, how it flows. And, well, that's kind of it. I can't see the last bullet on sorry, that was just a minor thing. And consistent with each sprint's goal. Remember that every sprint's goal, and this is the big deal with Agile, is to focus on what's important. So the goal of your sprint is not to finish on time. It's not to produce the deliverable. It is to deliver value to the stakeholders. If you don't deliver value to the stakeholders, nothing you do matters. It's important to keep that in mind. Because when that's in front of mind, then your activities and your planning flow from that, and that's where the business gets value. So, collaboration is a cornerstone of Scrum. You can have, of course, physical collaboration, physical work areas. You want to have a work area that does promote organic communication. That's why the war room idea works in some organizations. You always want to be able to quickly exchange ideas. But in a logical development environment, whenever you as a developer or your team member go in and you open some code and you type some stuff and save it, where does it save? Is it saved in the local area on your machine, or is it in a place that your team members can easily get a hold of? That's where Roundtable can really help. Because Roundtable gets the ability to support, or actually does support, team-oriented development in a way that allows multiple teams to work together, and you get the ability to have isolated changes that are very easily shared with your other team members. If you're using, let's say, you know about the group share status, very, very easy to share your changes, your in-process work with the group, but not share all the other groups, the other sprints. You may or may not choose to go that route. The easy way, or the linear workspace approach, of course, is development. Then you import all the changes to test, and you're ready to import all the changes to production. You may point out, or you may notice that I said that waterfall was a very linear activity. So there are linear activities that occur even in Scrum. But typically what will happen is that as developers release pieces of code for testing, they'll be working on more pieces of code, hopefully the same sprint, while the QA people have their hands on it and start testing immediately without impacting as one new developer. And this is a little bit more of the hybrid method, the hybrid model that I was talking about. Another thing you can do with Roundtable very easily is have separate workspaces for each sprint team. This may or may not be something that appeals to you, but it's certainly possible, where each sprint team can have their own development and test environment, and then we funnel those guys into a total QA or maybe even UAT testing environment to combine the final product. And the question here becomes, where does the sprint actually end? You can design it pretty much any way you want. Technically, the sprint should end whenever you reach production done. Does anybody run multiple sprints with separate teams working on the same product? How do you guys handle the output from two different teams? Is it the sprint ends in an integration phase, or is the output to deliverables from two teams? Is it integrated later after the sprint?
No, it's integrated after.
Okay. And that's the way, I was about to say the way it should be. I don't know that can be handy, but I like that approach. It's more consistent. Oh, I'm sorry. His answer was that it's integrated as part of the sprint.
Okay, we all work through the same workspace.
Okay, so you're using the previous model. If you were using a separate model, but basically the sprint would end regardless. Okay, artifacts and Roundtable rules. How do we do all this stuff? We talked about a lot of things we want to do. We haven't talked about the how. Basically, backlogs list all the features and bugs. It's a document of some sort, something somebody wants. In many cases, expressed as a user story. You've probably seen the as a goal, I want goal, desire, so that I achieve benefit. It's the same strategy. In Roundtable, we implement backlog items as tasks. Effectively, the product backlog is all user stories of the product, and the sprint backlog is just the highest priority product backlog items that are pulled into a particular sprint. Now, those become the tasks you work on. In Roundtable, everything is literally a task. So the way we do that, we allow the Roundtable tasks to organize and control all the work. Of course, anytime you modify any object in Roundtable, as you know, those that use it, has to occur under a task. If you don't have a task you selected as your current task, you cannot modify anything in Roundtable. You guys know, of course, you can set connection parameters on a database. I always have to say it. Other than that, backlog elements are tasks that are initially owned by, or the task for a backlog item initially can be blank, or it can own a document, docx, or a text file that more fully describes that backlog item. And how you implement that is really up to user preference. For me, I find that the task itself has the notes section where you can put anything you want in there. But if you want something more formal, if you have some sort of template that you use in Word, you could actually attach that or create that document as part of the task. And as the sprint work progresses, as you modify schema objects or code objects, then you just attach it to that task. And the way we group the tasks together is to use the task group. So initially, and I'm going to show what this looks like in Roundtable, initially we create a task group called product backlog. And we create a task for every item in the product backlog. For every sprint, we create a new sprint task group, and we move tasks from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. So if you want to see all the backlog items, the product backlog actually is the union of the product backlog and all the sprint backlogs for that particular set of sprints. So it looks something like, oh, then lastly, the task notations give us the additional details for priority of tasks. Does anybody use task notations? Is anyone aware of the task notations functionality in Roundtable? Okay, awesome. All right. Task notations, it is for some reason, very few people use this, but it's there. It gives a lot of supporting detail for tasks. It includes everything that you would need. Estimated time, actual time spent worked on the task. You can theoretically have multiple notes or notations for every task. So if you want to break up your work on a daily basis, even though the task may take 3 or 4 days, you can post a note, how much work you did on every day, and it also gives the ability to set priorities. All right, so here's what it looks like. This is the plugin. For those Roundtable users, how many are using the plugin, the Architect plugin? All right. What about the GUI? I would highly recommend if you're using the GUI Roundtable version to look at the plugin. It is really cool. It's very cool. Oh, it's very kind of funny. In the South, that's a humorous thing, but I think that's actually a Northeast. All right. So, yeah, I know. So basically, what happened, what I did here was I created a task 27. Now, we haven't gotten to the task group yet. It's creating tasks. And when I create a task, I have the summary, add successful compiles to the compile list. And then my note is, as a development user, I want to show successful compiles in the selected compile utility so that I can see how it progressed. It's basically a user story, very simple user story. And I assigned it to the manager, Jerry is the manager, and Bob, Gary, Patty, and Sissa are programmers. And it's currently a work in process. So I just create a task that represents each backlog item. Then I define the product backlog task group. And the items I add to the product backlog task groups are basically all my tasks. We're starting this all brand new. So if I don't want to see the product backlog, it's very easy to go to the list. It's right there. These are all the tasks. I'm ready now to start Sprint 1001. So I created a new task group called Sprint 1001 Backlog. There is a task group manager option. You can right mouse click on a task group, or a task rather, and there's an option there for task group manager, for task management. And this just allows me to click and then click the arrow to move from one group to another group. And effectively what I did was I took 30, 31, and 32, I think. I forget which way I went with them. No, I took 33, 34, 35, and I moved them to Sprint. That's what I'm trying to do. So I selected my Sprint 1001 backlog, and it gave me a list of all of the tasks in my workspace. I just clicked on 3 of them and moved them over. And the result is now I've moved tasks 33, 34, 35 from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. So now That is my sprint backlog. At this point, it's just regular roundtable. Go in, select your task, your active task, check out or create objects, check out or create objects.
Okay, bad.
Okay, check out create objects and continue work as normal. And then this is the task notations. This is from the GUI. We're going to mix things up a little bit. The previous windows were from the plugin. This is from the GUI. This is what it looks like. The task notation, you have task, priority, estimated hours, actual hours, and so on and so forth. You have a description of the work for a particular task, which may be incremental steps within the actual user story. And you can also have task notations for each object. So if you're working on one task and you have 5 programs you're writing or modifying, you could theoretically have a notation describing what you did in each object. So this is kind of the glue that holds everything together. So in task notations, we have all the ability to understand priority and work accomplished in tasks. Task groups gives you the ability to bring tasks together into sprints. And you have all the underlying structure that we need to manage Scrum projects with the Roundtable. And then this is a little bit larger version of the burn down chart. Now, I'll be very honest, there is no burn down chart you can get from one click in Roundtable yet. This was created from an Excel spreadsheet. It's very short today. It's a short hop to basically export data in Excel and create this. This is one of my enhancement requests. So, the benefits of using Roundtable is.
No, you go first. I have a question. Where were you at your time to show your burden? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm jumping through this really quick. In the Roundtable task notations, you have estimate and actual hours. And so what you do is, this is not the greatest interface. By the way, this program is provided with source code.
Say it again.
All right, this program was provided along with your Roundtable license. You have source code for this program, so you can tweak this if you want to. But the idea is, this is it's a wonderful generic entry. For Agile, we probably shrink this down just a tad to make it a little bit easier. But the idea is, you have estimated hours and how much time you actually spend on this is what we're done. Yes?
If you have QA people working in a team with developers, how do you manage the tasks for the QA people? Or is it the same task?
Excellent question. If you have QA people working with developers, which hopefully you will, how do you manage their tasks, or is it part of the same task? There's a couple different ways to do that. One of the enhancements, I think there's 3 enhancements that I'm asking for to make this next generation more Agile friendly. But one is task dependencies, and effectively we can do this now.
Thomas can speak to that.
What's that?
I said Thomas can speak to that for hours on end about
Absolutely. Oh, and we agree. We're definitely in agreement. And that's something that will likely be coming. Well, I would like to see that coming back every independence. But the idea is with task dependencies, we can we can actually do that now through the user web field. If you provide the parent task number to the user web field, and you keep that as a standard, it's not enforced, but if you keep that as a standard, then you can relate reports, you can easily create a hierarchy. But getting to more of the answer to your question, the QA people create their tasks. And if they're going to be working primarily in test workspace, they would create their tasks in test workspace for any work that they need to have accomplished. And then if they...
I was going to add something, you were done.
Okay, so yes, they would have separate tasks, but you can keep them, they'll be part of the same task group. So it's all of the same screen. And if you use the idea of QA task to test the development of task number 1, 2, 3, 4, then you put 1, 2, 3, 4 as the user reference field value in the QA task. It's a little bit of manual entry right now. That's how you would link the two tasks together. Does that answer your question?
Well,
not sufficiently, but it's
well, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how these promotions.
well, that's the thing with this. That's with the task groups. That's what's cool about task groups. You can associate. Are you familiar with share statuses? Task, central, group, and public. A task group, you can actually associate a physical location with that task group. So when you're trying to share the changes you've made to that task with the rest of your team, you can share the changes in that task just to the group. So your QA guys, they can be testing your application and using the changes that are in.
So you don't have to actually.
Exactly. Right. You don't have to promote them until they're committed, until they're a little more formal.
So the net is, if you didn't catch all the interchange, the idea is that with using these task groups, you can promote code changes to a shared group directory, and you don't have to promote to another workspace if you don't want to at that point. Yes.
If you aren't promoted to other workspaces and you want to keep track of it, you would have to somewhere in addition to that to keep track of, for example, the tasks tested.
Right.
Because once the task gets completed, you've got to check in your code, and it's not important that you can't start adding, you can't add additional information.
Right. There is no current facility, a direct facility right now for looking at a task and knowing whether it's been tested or not in the testing workspace. And that's what the task is doing, correct? That's also something we could discuss and ask. So, and by the way, the number of changes, I know I've already said the number of changes is very, very small to really get us into the ability to have related tasks with multiple statuses so that we can easily keep track of forward and backward what's happened, what's QA doing, has a particular modification been tested. Theory. We can actually do that somewhat with task notations, but it's not the way we should do that. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the richness of the capability of Roundtable to be able to move into an Agile Scrum environment and still have the level of support it does without just adding and bolting a lot more software. I was impressed with it. I thought it was going to take a lot more work to kind of bolt on some functionality. Most of it's already there. Okay, we're getting close. All right. So basically, I won't read you all the Agile benefits using Roundtable, but you get the ability to manage the whole process within an existing tool that is integrated into the open edge development environment. And one of the nice things about anything you do in Roundtable is audited. Everything that occurs in Roundtable, any change to any object, has to be under a task, it's assigned an event number, and you've got tons of information. Who did what, when, why. Auditors love that. I actually had a company that I helped implement Roundtable for a specific reason of being Sarbanes-Oxley compliant because their auditors were just beating them up. And so they were, once they were implemented, they said, "What do we show the auditors? Here are the reports, we go to the auditors." A week later, they came back and said, "Can we have you kind of modify the reports because the auditors were saying this is just too much information?" Yes. It wasn't bad information, they just said, "This is too many details. We don't need that much level of detail." I've never heard an auditor say that. All right. And lastly, so these are the future work requests. So basically, these are not commitments. I'm not saying that this is exactly what's going to be in version 11.4 or 12 of Roundtable. These are requests. Import by task group. Currently, when you do import changes, you import by task or by release or by workspace, but there's no easy way to simply click on Sprint and say, import all the tasks under this task. But right now, what you can do is you can sort by user ref. So if you're using user ref with Sprint ID, then you can easily look at it and go, click, 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 import these guys. So it's pretty easy, but it would be easier task group. We also need some new reports that are tailored to tracking Agile activities, or Scrum activities, I should say. And then finally, more granular or detailed task notation information. That task notation functionality is pretty cool, but we need to kind of have that data entry screen tailored just a tad bit more. And this really is not a enhancement request per se, because we have source code for that. And that's something that I'm likely going to circle back and make some changes to without having to ask the development. And lastly, the one thing I don't have listed here is the task interactions, task dependencies, and additional steps. So, we know that Scrum is one of the most popular development models that's being used today because it focuses on delivering high customer value. It's not on producing products, it's producing value to the customer. Roundtable gives the ability to manage the process even if you're using Scrum development model. So the recommendation is explore Roundtable if you're not using it. If you are using it, look at some of the features we talked about today. It has a lot of flexibility. Okay, so that will conclude the formal portion. Any questions? We've got 2 minutes left. I'll get you guys out of here on time. Any questions you have not answered so far?
The task notifications, you can have multiple task notations, per task. Right?
Yes, you can have multiple notations per task. And as many as you want. It's theoretically unlimited. It's what we get through.
Yeah, that task notations table, you can add to it if you want to. We're never going to delete it or do anything to it. It's just kind of a basic framework, so you can add additional fields to it. But yeah, you can. It's one to many. You can have as many notations as you want per task. And all the reports are sourced as well. But in case you don't know that, so if you ever need to modify any of the reports to give you more information about the task or the notation, they're all available.
There's a lot of source code to get around. Keep around with look at what's there.
For the love of God, don't say.
All right, I'll go there. Any other questions? Guys, thanks a lot for your time. Enjoy the conference, and we'll see you guys tonight and tomorrow. Thanks a lot.